Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is the Trailmaster MB 202. What I have for you guys today is the Amazon portable mini bike light kit. Let's take a closer look. This is a portable 12-volt automotive jump starter. It's also a flashlight, an emergency light, and it's a power source. We have two USBs, a couple of these other ports, and these ones, well, those are for these lobster claws right here. These typically come in little kits so that you can store them away in your trunk somewhere, and they have little adapters like this, so if you plug this in here and you have something that goes into a cigarette lighter, then you can power it from this source. So that's an out feed from here. They also give you a couple of your wires, so you can go from either the small end to a USB, or you can go from the USB to these small ends for your different charging purposes. This is really not a bad thing to have on board if you're going off-road. Secondly, we have lights. I don't have these in the boxes. They come in a multitude of different fashions, models, different brands with the same models and such. So pick one, that's going to be 12 volt and the color design you want, the fit you want. You might be able to use just one, but for today's installation, we're going to be using two. I'll show you the most important part. This isn't the rat's nest of wires that it may appear to be. This is a Nightlight off-road LED light bar wiring harness. This is what's going to make this installation super simple. Well, I was hoping to be able to stretch this out and hold on. Alright, let's take a trip. We'll start up here. We have two red and black wires. This is for one of your headlights. This is for the other headlight. This is all the wire you have to run along your frame up to your headlights. This goes to your power source. That's going to be the jumper pack. We have a fuse already in line. That goes back to the relay. The relay gets mounted on your frame. From the light in the power source, in the relay, we have a switch. Everything plugs in and is ready to install. Back at the workbench, we have our 2 lights and also a bag with some spare fuses and these connectors. These connectors correspond with these connectors. So, if we put these on the red and black wires that are connected to the lights, we can now plug the lights in to the harness using the red and black wires designated for it. I marked my negative lead so I would know the difference. Now that I look at this relay up close, I think this is just a mounting tab and not so much a ground, where we have our fuse over here and it's set up for, you know, a negative lead or an external ground. We're going to be using it straight up off the battery, so I think we can test this thing out just like this. With the lights flashing, I think we're live. Got our switch right here, and our lights are right over there. Wham, bam, blah, jam. We're in business. Sort of. You see that flash? It's kind of hard to miss. You probably hear that click too. That's because this is set to cycle for a jump start. This was a cigarette lighter accessory source. This was direct wired because there's an inline fuse. This is for an uninterrupted power source. So this will give you a direct feed without the interrupted signal for the jump starter. I could have got the male end and yada yada, wired it up and used this as the connection. However, for this application, it's not very dependable. It's big, it's clumsy. You go ahead and add a second half to that. You know what I'm saying? I'm all set. So, I cut off the wires to it, and I used this as a guide. You know, you have red and black, and then positive and negative. So this is wired the same as this. That means when we plug this into these new ends that I put on the ends of these cables, we should have a direct live feed of rechargeable 12 volt power. It can be unplugged and used for other things, unplugged and recharged. the lights can stay on the bike. We're going to plug our leads in to our new adapter first. That's our complete standalone system that we don't need. Complete with the relay and the switch. This power button shouldn't have to be turned on. We just plug in. We're live. Fuse for protection. Relay doing its thing. There's the lights. Here's the switch. We have action. I chose these nice, yellow trail lamps. We'll see how they do. If I decide that I don't like these, well, I can order some new ones, unplug them, and swap them out. The switch only lights up when it's on, so it's not a constant draw from the battery. You can hear a nice, healthy click coming from the relay. I'm only running a 15 amp fuse, so pay attention to that. If these come with multiple fuses, I wouldn't, start with anything too extreme. That works. I'm going to leave this on for a little bit and make sure nothing gets too hot. After about 20 minutes, this is cool as a cucumber. The fuse is alright. The relay, it's a little warm. I can feel that it's doing something. The switch, it's fine. The lights are a little warm. These have these cooling fins on the back for a reason. It's the only thing these have to dissipate internal temperature created from whatever, you have 12 volts here, it runs through a series, it gets down here, it has to reduce and ohms and do all that stuff, guys. I don't know any of it, but what I do know is when you have resistance, it creates heat. So whether or not that level of heat is going to increase is the question. I'm manhandling this thing right now, and it's not burning me. It's very cold out. No, it's probably in about 20 right now, and I should really feel some heat coming off that. And I feel a good amount, but not enough where I'm concerned that it's going to transfer through and melt anything on the bike itself. What we're concerned about is this. We don't want this heating up and melting down. If that happens, hopefully it, has this fuse, this is last jump off before it does any damage here. So where we're under a constant, this is just like hooking up to a battery. We'll see what happens. been another 15 minutes. Everything feels about the same. If this were to have a meltdown and pop this fuse in here, that should disrupt the circuit and shut it down. It won't shut the power off, but it'll take it off of all these wires, so hopefully nothing lights on fire. Alright, it's been another 45 minutes, so everything is nice and cool. There's the switch. The relay, it seems to be just the same. It's like if water was lukewarm. It's a little bit warmer than touching something that isn't warm at all. And it's sort of just equalized there, so cool, man. The lights, as you can see, I can still hold them. They do get warm if you hold them perfectly still, but they're not taking me down. Now, we gotta mount them on the bike. We'll just test the switch out one more time. Solid. I have a couple pieces of plate. This is 3/16, and this big boy is 1/4 inch. These lights aren't that heavy. We want to kind of keep it sort of light. I think this is going to be plenty rigid. The mount that we're going to be going for today on the Trailmaster is going to be based on the original headlight mount. I know that it's going to be sort of angled down, but the lights themselves are adjustable. So what I want to do is figure out where my 2 holes are going to go first, alright, and then mark those out somewhere, and that'll give me sort of a center reference with these 2 points on the piece of metal. And then I'll try to use the least amount possible to have enough room to get my bolts and such on and have the 2 lights right next to each other. Alright, so that may have taken a couple tries, but I got 4 holes laid out and a couple cuts to make. Once I have that done, we'll take a look at reshaping it into something a little more refined than a complete rectangle. I drilled out all 4 of my holes, and then I laid out the middle 2 on the original headlight mount. Drilled those out. I'm probably going to sand this off and hit this with some paint right now. At this point, I'm going to take my 2 lights and mount them on the new piece of steel. I'm going to try to keep the brackets nice and square, and I'll mark the front and the back. I'll make a few lines. I'm also going to mark this side here. Alright, so we can now take this out to the bench grinder and start working it back. We could also break out Big Herc and do ourselves justice and tear some of the considerable bulk of cyborg meat off the front and back first. We'll see how it goes. Now that I have things trimmed down to where I want them, I'm just going to slap it around. A little bit of that high heat grill paint. I might throw some primer at it first. There's a little left in the can. A couple hours later, it's all dry. I just found some matching hardware, and I'm going to attach our new bracket to the stock one. Once that's tightened on, that really doesn't look too bad. Doesn't interfere with anything. That'll work. Now, I'm going to bolt on the lights, get them to where I think they need to be, tighten them up. I'm going to run all my wires on this side, my brake line on this side. That way I can do a crossover through the frame on the brake line and eat up some of the extra length. I got them all tightened down, and these things are on there. I aimed them a little bit inside and down, so hopefully that'll put a beam where we need it. It's still really cold out, and I should have brought my electrical tape inside. I didn't, so it's not working out so well. I'm using zip ties to organize my harness. My aim is to try to create one continuous cable with the switch dangling out in no man's land. This looks pretty crazy, guys, but let me trim it up real quick. I didn't count. 40 maybe, 35. Once we cut all of those off, I looped it back over, and I added 3 more. Now we can take our jump starter and plug it into our new harness. I'm going to test the switch out. Make sure we're in working order. This is just a good grade day pack for hiking and such, so we'll be using that. I'm also going to be using one of these smart straps. Now I just put the harness in the bottom and place our jumper on top, making sure it's plugged in. This bag isn't too big, so everything stays nice and snug. I'm going to take my switch and our feed wire and place it to one side. Then I'll zip the bag. Nice and neat. You hit that switch again. Make sure everything works, just as it should. With everything in there, the pack zipped, nice and neat, we'll hit our switch. Make sure we're still live. The end of this cable is sitting over on this side of the bag, pushed up against the jumper. So when we roll this up, that should help it stay in place. I just used the smart strap to roll it up. That way, everything is nice and compact. We have our lead and our switch coming out one end. I then attach the bag to the frame. We have this dead spot that is solid steel. If you fall off the seat and you hit that, it's not going to be fun. I used a bungee cord that has some locking style ends on it, and I attach those to my reinforcement plate. Over on this side, I made sure that I can access this zipper, and my lead and my switch are hanging out freely. I just went in my medicine cabinet and found an old vitamin bottle. I tried to rip the label off and it had that papery film on the outside, so instead of cleaning it off, I just wrapped it with some red duct tape. Next, we're going to be drilling a hole in the bottom of this. I'm taking a look at my switch. I have on over there, off over there, right? So if I tilt that so I can see it from the bottom, it goes red, white, black. If the white's in the middle, I just have to remember that the red one is on the off side. I pulled my wires off of the switch, and then carefully, making sure that they're covered and not touching one another, I fed them through the bottom of my vitamin bottle. I'm now going to reattach the switch. This is just a crude stop made with a couple zip ties and a piece of electrical tape. I just made a crude stop out of 2 bread ties and some electrical tape. The reason we did this, well, now we slide the switch into the bottle. We can turn it on. And then cover it. Our switch is now safe inside. We take this. I'm going to place it at the front of the pack where the zipper is. This might take two hands. And zip it so that it's safely inside, away from the weather. The only thing we have sticking out, finally, I zip it shut, and I used this bungee clasp here to hold the two zippers together, which helps retain the end of our lead. So, the lights are on. It takes you a few minutes, maybe a minute, to take this apart and turn the light off. Chances are, if you're going to be running the lights on this bike, they're going to be on for a little while. 22 seconds. That's what it took to get in there and turn that off. Another cool thing about this, guys, nothing is permanently attached. All we have to do is take off these two bolts and our bungee. The whole thing is mobile. Well, that wasn't too bad. And to think, I only used 38 zip ties. But that's okay, because as always, it's a work in progress. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.